could just keep your smoothie out the way. Have you checked that that's it is recording? Yes.
That is 100%. The seconds are going up. Is that 100%?
Yes.
Or PTSD.
Yeah, that's recorded.
Okie dokie.
PTG.
Just having a little sippy whippy before we start.
PTG.
Right.
This is going to be a laugh. This is really going to be a laugh.
Cool. We love laughs. Here to say how it is.
Okay, cool.
Cool. Testing 1, 2, 3. Can you all hear me? Okay, ready to go?
Yeah.
Simon, founder of Speakeasy Club. All right. Welcome back to another episode of Say It How It Is, where we are joined by Simon, the founder of Speakeasy Club. Thank you so much for joining us.
No, pleasure. Thank you for asking.
Thank you. So we start off, Ffion asked me in the car, what is Speakeasy? I said, I'll leave that for Simon to answer.
So, essentially we advocate well-being through sport. That's the kind of mission. And the aim really is to kind of have similar conversations that you guys do. You know, you name the tricky things, but then you provide the support around it. And my background's sport. I've grown up in sport my whole life, 30 plus years, and worked in sports governing bodies. And when I was kind of struggling at my lowest with depression, anxiety, I was going to the rugby club and I was going to the tennis and the golf club, and there's no support there. Those sorts of conversations don't happen. So the aim really of Speakeasy is to get a QR code with free resources in every community sports venue in the world, start in Wales, and then just really help people to kind of feel like they can ask questions and be curious and do it in a way that ultimately everyone feels safe and not judged. And the kind of long-term goal, the why really is, I've got a little 5-year-old lad and Reg, I want to be having a pint with him in 15 years time, and if all him and his mates know really is to ask about stuff they don't understand and they work it out together, done our job really.
Yeah, definitely. And we'll come back to the curiosity thing in a bit. But I wanted to touch on that. Obviously, you just mentioned about Reggie. What were you like as a kid? Do you see bits of him bits of you in him, I should say? And sort of your childhood, how was that? School? I know me and you have had chat before about how our school experiences were a little bit similar. So can you just touch on that a little bit?
Yeah, absolutely. Growing up similarities. I mean, he's got big, white, curly hair now, and I haven't got it now. Clearly, yeah. But apparently I did growing up. So that's clear where that's come from, which is great. But yeah, you know, he's really curious. He's very he's quite different to me actually in a sense. He perseveres, and he really likes to understand why. He doesn't like to be out of routine. Doesn't like to not know what's going on. And I'm a bit like that. And growing up for me, I was very lucky. You know, grew up locally, Penarth and Sully, and primary school was good. It was fine. There was no issues really. Nothing bad. Playing football and tennis and just being involved in sport. My father's been involved in tennis and rugby his whole life, so it was a bit inevitable really. I am more football than rugby and I know.
Do you want to leave now or? Joking.
An episode over.
But it's interesting that fast forward slightly, that I'll go back.
Yeah.
You know, rugby clubs and the rugby environments are really close to my heart now, and they're the real places I want to focus on. You know, one game at Tighthead in year 7, and my
Go
father.
on, boy.
Yeah. don't like to make a fuss, but walked off the pitch and my father gave me my goalie gloves back and said, "Yeah, I think you better go back to your goal, son." But yeah, so really good, really enjoyed it. And then going into secondary school, I don't remember kind of thinking, "Oh, this is daunting, this is different." Yeah, you're in a bigger school and what have you. But had all the pals around, and yeah, we've shared some. I was going to say good stories. I mean,
some stories.
Yeah, maybe good's not the right word, but being bullied a bit, kind of year 8 time, sort of 12, 13, and the effect that has long term and the impact at the time. And I remember kind of thinking how shit it was. There's no other way around it. You know, whatever that you don't think when you're 12, 13, you don't think about, I wonder what their motivation is. I wonder, you know, hurt people.
Where's this coming from?
Yeah. Let's really sit down and piece this through. You go, this is just rubbish.
Yeah.
And again, fast forward 25 years, I've now worked out that a lot of my poorer behaviours over the last 25 years to an extent, drinking or relying on alcohol too much, eating rubbish, spending money, all to fill this hole that you've got, this insecurity, this anxiety, the numbness, to feel better in the short term, but without really understanding it. I felt it was like a year this bullying went on for, and spoke to my mother, and she was like, it's like 2 weeks.
Wow.
But that's the impact that at that age, those sorts of destructive behaviours, and again, I know you've had similar experiences, and that's kind of a motivation for me now with Speakeasy in this sense, and particularly with Reg, is to kind of just be, right, every single thing we do has an effect and an impact. We leave a footprint and an imprint everywhere we go. I don't expect you to get everything right. That's impossible. But let's just try and understand why we do everything we do at the earliest point.
Yeah.
And yeah, the rest of school was good. It was interesting. It was good fun. Didn't know that I was tackling with all those things at the time, but yeah, it was a happy childhood in many ways. But that period had a very long-lasting effect.
I think it's so interesting, like listening to the fact that, like you mentioned, it was only 2 weeks, but how long it felt, and now it makes me think, like, look back, like mine actually was years, but it's kind of like we have similar experiences in experiencing, like it's that almost when you're that age, you just want to fit in, like you just want to be cool, normal, which is quite funny because I think that's probably what we both don't want to be now, is normal. Like, what's normal, you know? That's no fun. But I just think, like, I can see now, like you're saying, looking back, the impact that people's words had on me, and how it's actually taken me so long, and quite possibly a lot of the root of things like having a lot of worry and anxiety and things. I think a lot of that has come from the things people would say to me, because in one sense when I was young, I always thought, like, I don't understand why people don't like me. Like, I don't get it. I'm just like doing my own thing. And I think that's actually quite a mature thing for a 12, 13-year-old to think. But then the other half of me would go home and sometimes I'd be like, what? Like, why? Why don't they like me? I don't understand. And I think I carried that through to sort of like my mid-teens and even up to my 20s. Like, I always had this. Then I almost had imposter syndrome when people did like me. It was weird. Like, at uni, I would almost be like, are you sure that you want to be my friend? Like, like, is this going to come back to bite me, kind of thing? Because I've experienced that before where, like, I thought you might have been my friend, but actually turns out you're not. And, you know, in school I did feel very, very isolated. And it actually ended up probably being the reason that I like my own company so much, because I kind of just had to get used to it, if that makes sense.
I think if I flip that experience for my own, like, I never really got bullied because I was so, like, self-protected because of, like, I knew so many people knew so much about things I was going through, and so much people knew so much about me and had so much to talk about me, that I became so self-protected that, like, I didn't stand for any of that. So, like, if someone was going to attempt to be cruel to me or, you know, disrespect me and stuff, I nip it in the bud straight away. And I think that the consequence of that has made me so savage as an adult, because, like, in a good and bad way, because I think my wall goes up straight away. And that can be a good thing, but also can be a bad thing, because you think the worst of people straight away rather than the opposite. And that's, again, the consequence of living like that as a child, thinking like, oh, well, I know so-and-so is speaking about this about me. And then you create this, like, protection circle around you to think of, like, how you can survive it, if that makes sense.
I think, like, a lot of the time people aren't even aware. And, like, that's where therapy comes into it, right? And it's not until you go... And I do see this podcast as a kind of therapy for us and our guests, to be fair. But, like, it's not until you go and talk to someone about it and they're like, have you ever, like, what was this experience like for you? And you talk about it and you're like, oh, wait, like, that actually makes complete sense. And so that's a lovely segue into your experiences in terms of, as you grow up, at what point did you start to think, or maybe I'm struggling with my mental health, maybe I need to see someone, I need to seek help with that? Obviously, we're fast forwarding a bit from your childhood there, but kind of talk us through at what point that started to sort of occur.
Excuse me. 2016, I think, really. As I say, worked in sports NGBs 13 years. I worked for Tennis Wales for 6 years and then went out to Canoe Wales, general manager. 29, career progression, going to take over the world. This is it. And no pun intended, but I was totally out my depth. I didn't have a clue. There was a lot more to it in terms of the legalities and safeguarding, and more than I'd appreciated. And I'd been there probably about 13, 14 months, and I was I was doing everything I could to distract myself really from the reality without knowing that's what I was doing. And, you know, I signed up to a couple of marathons. I was training for them, and, you know, going, I'll do a 15-mile training run, and then go, I can have 6 pints and a burger now. And you're like, it's not really ideal, is it?
Yeah.
And then throughout that year, 2016, it was a bit of a bonkers year altogether. I found myself just drinking more often every night. Never too much, but too often.
Yeah.
And using it quite clearly as a crutch and as a way. And naturally, it makes you more anxious. And then you can't sleep. So then I had sleeping tablet every night to try and sleep. And it was about 3 or 4 months, I think. And, you know, my wife, clearly, the impact on other people you don't appreciate at the time at all. You know, you're just so in your own head, and none of it is malicious, none of it's intentional. However, you still got to own the consequences. And I remember it got to the November, and it was November the 9th, and a particular email had come through about a safeguarding case that we were trying to deal with, and I just lost it. I just broke down, couldn't stop crying, didn't understand, had to basically get permission from my wife and my father to leave the job. And that night, it worked out. It was the first time in 3 months that I went to bed without a drink or without sleeping tablets. And I've only ever had 2. I mean, I had a son in the meantime, you know. Sleep was an issue to start with, but I've only had 2 since.
Wow.
And I just won't do it. Doesn't matter how tired I am now, I just don't want to do it. So started therapy. Best thing in the world. Like, talking therapy is just, as you both, I've got a question just on, you talked about therapy in here. I think you're totally right. But being able to just go, right, there's something going on. I don't know what it is. I don't know where it comes from. Can I just talk at you? And I found, and I'd be interested in your thoughts as well, is that was the first time I felt like I was heard and listened to. And you just kind of think, oh, right, yeah, there's a bit of validation there to an extent. But there's actually, you're not
Nuts.
mad. You're not, you're not bonkers. Like, there are reasons for this, and we can sort them. So that was good. And I stopped and felt all right for a couple of years, really. And 2021 then, been through a pandemic. Everyone found it really tricky. It compounded everything for me. And I went back to therapy, and my wife had been going through therapy, and she was really on the up. She was doing super, super well. So I thought, I'll just go and ask the question. Feel all right. And it was online still, and I vividly remember she said, so what's brought you here today then? I said, do you know what? I don't know. I think I'm all right. I mean, I can't concentrate. I can't sleep. I feel confused all the time. I cannot. My stomach is just horrendous. I can't stop crying. And I just really don't feel like I want to do anything I used to love. She went, okay, right then. It sounds like you're severely depressed. And the anxiety and depression, she said, they're like their best mates.
Yeah, we work hand in hand.
They're hand in hand. I said, oh, right, okay. And then I closed the laptop after the session finished. And she said, right, we'll speak to you next week then. And I remember just being like, the fuck do I do now?
What now?
You've just like dropped this bombshell on me.
Yeah.
And looking back, what I didn't think at the time, but actually looking back, that's something I want to try and do with Speakeasy as well. Sorry, knocking the old...
No, I was just thinking that the plant is just trying to glitch.
It's going to be animated now. I'm looking over the fauna. And I remember, and it's a link to a bit we talk about later, I'm sure, about Clubhouse and safety, and literally closed the laptop, thought, what do I do now? And my father texted and said, I'm going over the club for a pint of 5. Do you want to go? Usual thing. And I said, yeah, okay, great. And I live literally by the club, and I walked into the car park, and I turned around 5 times. I was like, I can't go in. And I was going, oh yeah, how do you tell your father, like, you're severely depressed, you really don't think it'd be easier to not be here? And it was never the act of telling him, actually, because he was amazing in that moment. But it was the act of going into a place that I loved and connected with and just felt safe in. At that moment, I just didn't. it was the opposite. It was really
It
scary.
felt really scary. Yeah, I just was
So scary.
It's
And
the thing. I think it's about being vulnerable, though. It's like that is such a vulnerable thing to do, and it's like even though, like you said, that's your safe space. Like, like you said, it gives you the complete opposite feeling.
yeah, and that was terrifying because in that point I was like, okay, so if it's not there, where is it?
Yeah.
What have I got? And just fast forward a bit to the kind of crux of it, where it all came to a head. Really, you know, for the next 2 months, I was trying to work it out. What is depression? What are these feelings? How do you talk about it? How do you not talk about it? What the bloody hell is going on here? And it just kept getting worse, really. And there was one Sunday the 3rd of July, and I was just crying all day. My wife was like, we've got to sort this out. And I went for a walk down Barry Island, and on the head down there, I found myself on the edge of the cliff there. I wasn't planning on doing anything. I hadn't, and I just found myself there and looking out going, yeah, I get it. I get why people are so confused. They're so fed up. They feel like everything's lost. I get why they do it. And I then looked down and realised how close I was, and that shook me up a bit. Then I went, oh, right, okay. I was able to turn around 3 months off work and really just push the massive reset button and think about, right, well, what do we do now?
So
I don't know if that's
when
actually
you
answered the question. Sorry, I can't remember what the question was.
no, it's all right. We started with therapy, but we went into
Therapy's wicked.
yeah. So when you got to that point where you found yourself on the edge of the cliff, from that moment, what were the next steps? Because obviously you get to that point and you're like, crap, like, okay, like, what am I going to do? I can't imagine that you just go home and think, oh, right then, well, okay, cool. We just got to sort this out. What next? What happened next? And because I think that there were, like, in terms of one of the hardest places to get out of and the rock bottom, that's it. And the good thing about rock bottom is the only way's up, but the hard thing about rock bottom is it's really hard to get up. So where did you go from there?
So, I consider myself very lucky that once I had that shake-up moment, I turned around, went straight to my parents, and my wife came round, and I said, I need some time off work. I need to... And naturally, again, they were like, well, obviously. And I fell into it. I'll never forget. I said, oh, right, okay, so I'm meeting my boss on Wednesday. I've got a few projects just to finish. I'll just finish them up. And then Friday, I'm in the doctor's Friday, and we'll sort it out. And I remember my old man, rugby boy, former solicitor, he doesn't really swear. He said, you're fucking mad. He said, that's what's got you into this problem in the first place.
Yeah.
Monday morning, woke up, dropped Reg at nursery, spent 40 minutes on the phone to the GP. Fortunately, someone answered and went through the process. By lunchtime, I was off work. Done.
Wow.
The medication was an interesting one because naturally, as a bloke, I don't like the stigmas of stereotype, but they're also very true. Oh, it's all right, I'll work through it. I'll have a bit of time off. I don't need that. And then I watched, the day after I was off work, I watched the Joe Marler documentary, Big Boys Don't Cry. And there was so much, apart from playing front row for internationally in a World Cup, I didn't relate to that. but everything else, I was like, yeah, crying, putting a face on. You talked about it, in your podcast as well, about as soon as you get on the field, you go, this is where I live, this is me. And I was like, yeah, I get that. And he has his hand out with anti-inflammatories, vitamins, various bits. Oh, and that's my antidepressant, probably on that for the rest of my life. I went, oh, right, well, if he's having a go.
And normalising it to be like, yeah.
It. And that was the bit for me going, he didn't change his tone, he didn't change the way he spoke about it.
There's no big deal about it.
No big deal.
Yeah.
This is going to help me get better.
Yeah.
So I started on then and have been on them ever since.
Interesting, because I actually was on them when I was a kid, and then we tried different ones. Like I had a bad reaction to one, and I was on another, which worked really, really well for me. And like I said, I spoke about it in my own episode. Is that like rugby became the drug for me in the end, and then like I ended up choosing like no professional was like, oh, let's wean them off. That was my own decision. And I was like 15, I think, at this stage, when I was like making that very adult decision about like, I don't feel like I need them anymore and I don't want to be dependent on them. And then because what I felt I needed, I was getting from rugby, then I just started weaning off them. And then in the end, I wasn't on them anymore. But I think at the beginning, again, I think I was like 13, 14 when I first was on them. That's quite young. I was like, I thought, oh, you're crazy to be on these. Like, I didn't want anybody to know. It was kind of like a secret to be like that I was on medication. Like, I can remember I was staying over my friend's house, and I was like, I told her I forgot to get something else, not to tell her I was going home to get my medication. And yeah, it's quite interesting because it's like, fast forward, it may not be like that now, and if I was on them, I probably wouldn't be that insecure about it again. But back then I was like, oh, it's something completely terrible. Didn't want to be on them, but unfortunately it was what I needed at the time. Yeah.
Just on that, go back slightly about the therapy bit in here, because they're linked, and I'm totally with you. Because people think they solve everything.
Yeah.
And they absolutely don't. You know, they just make you feel a bit less shit.
Yeah.
But you've got to do all the other stuff around you. You've got to look at your behaviours, why you're doing stuff, and talk about things. And I'm interested in your kind of thoughts on this space, and when you're having all the different episodes of different people you're talking to, and then you go into different parts of your kind of experiences. Does that feel like therapy as well? And
100%. Like, I've never actually had therapy, but I've always been interested in it, but I think I see a lot of other parts of my life as being like therapy for me, like this being the main one. But I think in a weird way, I kind of like had my own therapy through teaching myself things. I don't know if and I got really curious about reading like self-helpy type books, but all of a sudden I would be like, oh, that makes sense. And I would like piece together things. It probably would be really interesting for me to speak to a therapist actually. But obviously we get the like sports psych support as well, which is kind of, I think, dribs and drabs. You get bits out of that. And then again, for me, if I think something or I learn something, speaking it is like my favorite thing to do. And whether that's teaching someone about it or just being like, oh, I've thought about this. What do you reckon about this? Podcasts is another thing that I think, like, listening to podcasts and hearing other people like speak about something, you think, oh, I've got that. Or if they've had an experience in their childhood and they talk about how that affected them, and you go, oh, well, I had that, so it would make sense that I feel the same way as they do now. And I think that's why what we do on this podcast and what you do on your podcast and many other podcasts are available, is so important, because it just allows people to be like, oh, actually, that's normal, or that's not something that I should be, worried about, because it is something that someone else is experiencing, and then they maybe go on to talk about it themselves.
Well, I had therapy as a kid, but I say therapy, but I had anger management as a kid, but it was adult anger management. It wasn't right for me, but it wasn't anything available to me. Like, it wasn't many people around like me, my age and where I was from. So the only thing available to me at the time was to go to a adult anger management counsellor, which again didn't work. And then I think that's what gave me this negative like view on therapy, because that was my experience of it, and I really, really needed it growing up, but I didn't have it because that's what I remember it being like. I can remember then fast forward into university, and I can remember being like, I was in first year, towards the end of first year, I was really unwell, and I was like, I'm ready to talk now. I'm ready for it. Like, I'm just going to do it. I did it off my own back. I'd like met this counsellor that was available through university, but again, wasn't that great of an experience, and it kind of like closed me off. I can remember going twice and coming away from it being like, if this is what therapy is, I really don't like it. And then again, that shut me off then for like a fair few years, and then only now, like this, like the last few years of rugby where I've had this psych available to me, where I've started using it again. But I felt it was something really scary, because like, again, you're vulnerable, and being vulnerable is scary, and like sharing with a stranger things I've really protected my entire life. I was like, if I can't even trust the people around me, how can I trust someone I don't even know? So I found that really, really difficult. But what I learned is you have to be ready. You have to be ready to do it. You can't force yourself to go to therapy, because it won't work, because you have to be open and you have to buy into it for it to be successful. And then like, yeah, I've worked with Dale, our sports psych, who's also clinically qualified, and yeah, brilliant. Like, his background before coming into performance was with kids like me, so it was perfect, because I'm coming into him as a international athlete with also all of this baggage behind me, and he's looking at me going, I actually understand you completely as a person. So that's the first time in my 27 years where I've met someone connected with, and that's someone who you spoke about feeling heard. That's what I felt like with Dale, because he literally understood everything that I am and why I'm the way I am. So since then, the walls come down, and he's a massive part of my, I won't say life because it's a bit deep, but like,
Well, no, it's true.
yeah, he's been.
He'd love that.
Yeah, he would laugh at me. He's like, flipping like, you're being nice. But yeah, he is, because like
Let's unpick that. Let's just see where that's coming from. Yeah.
But he, like, I find that a really important part of my job, my life, because I'm like that. I really value it. Like, I value that the same as making sure I'm getting my gym sessions in and eating well. Like, I value making time for Dale as important, because like it's something that I don't think still is prioritised enough in workplaces as a whole. But it's something that's really taken me a long time to get to this point. But now I'm here, I'm like, it just makes sense why this is really important.
It does, doesn't it? That relief. It's interesting. Listening to you both, it's very similar to kind of how I feel about it. You know, Gwen, you said you haven't had therapy or been through formally, but then to me, everything you said afterwards essentially is therapeutic.
Yeah, definitely.
And what is therapy? You know, it's not to dismiss the technicalities of it all, but ultimately feeling heard, trusting the person, and a safe space. If you do those, so you can do it with a mate, you can do it with whoever. But that's ultimately what it is. And to go into your episode on the pod as well, I mentioned to you when I listened to it the first time, I listened to it again this morning.
I did get sent your voice note, to be fair.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
She did. I was like,
Yeah, because I'm not gonna lie, I listened to it when I was on the toilet in the gym. I was having a poo in the gym. That's what I was doing. I thought, Simon sent me a voice note, so I listened to it. And he cried on the toilet having a poo.
I was just caught off guard. I sat
And I was like, go forward this to Ffion now.
If you don't clip that bit out, I'll be furious.
I'm cutting that out.
I remember being sat on the sofa and Gwen was like, oh, just send you this, you really should listen to it. Listen to it. And I was like, oh my God. And I just thought it mad that someone was just saying that about me, to be honest.
But
You're going to make me cry now, aren't you?
not intentionally.
No, don't lie. You said before the podcast you were going to make her cry.
I just thought, I mean, the whole story was striking. The whole way you talked about it, and you were so emotive, but so empowered at the same time, because you'd been through all of that, and to have your friend Kate there as well was incredible. But what was really important,
oh my God, everybody's got me ready.
but the way that you heard it and dealt with it and supported through the whole conversation, like one of the most important skills is around not being surprised, because as soon as you act surprised in something people say, the wall will come up and you'll feel, you won't feel vulnerable. And you did it at no stage. You just welcomed it in the kindest way and just supported the whole way through. And even at the start, you said, I don't know where to start. Just go.
It's actually wild, because
Yeah.
we've spoken about it a couple of times since.
Yeah.
I was like, it was wild, because I'm someone that likes to be prepared. I like to have read up on things, like where am I going to go if the conversation goes this way, where's it going to go? And I sat down and I was like, hang on a minute, I am the interviewer right now, like the only one. Usually there's two of us, so it's nice we can bounce back and forth. But I was like, but I actually don't know what I'm interviewing about. And then that was because she told me 4 months prior to this that this episode was happening. So for 4 months I'd be going, what the hell is this about?
People think it's nuts and it sounds like, I don't get it. But I'm like, I'd planned this episode in my own brain for the last however many years, and I knew this moment was happening, and I didn't need it to be scripted. Like, Gwen knowing that had that opportunity for me to really like to stage the questions and stage the answers. I didn't want it to be like that. I wanted it to be as natural as possible. And like you said, you questioned me so well, because for you were just reacting off the answers, and that's exactly what I wanted. I wanted it to be as authentic as possible. Don't want to stand there and have like notes to be like, you need to ask me X, Y, and Z. I wanted to just be real, and then that's how I think it came across, because it was the most naturalist, flowingest conversation.
Flowingest.
Naturalist.
I don't think they're words, but I'll
Now
let
they
it
are.
slip.
I felt it
Now
was
they
really
are.
flowingest. Yeah, that's
Flowing.
that's exactly.
You were so flowingest.
It was so flowingest, but it was so authentic, and it was amazing. It's one of the most authentic and real, and I hope empowering for you on the back of it.
Yeah.
And that's the culture. That's a shining example of, I think, how friends can support each other and talk to each other. And there was just one thing I wanted to ask, if that's all right,
Go for
about it. It was clearly something you've been working through and you've talked through, and you were really quite emotional and scared at many times mentioning things. There was one time you got angry, and it was, you were like, every fucking bastard wrote me off.
Yeah.
And that was noticeable that you got angry at that bit. I just wanted to kind of understand that a little bit more. And did you pick up on that afterwards, or?
Not until you mentioned it, no. Yeah, I think because that's something that we talk about how you're bullying, like that's you felt the consequence of that in later life, and I think that's what my experience. So like people writing me off has affected me in later life, and now I feel like I have a point to prove, which is why I've got this attitude and this aggressive attitude about it, and I'm very self-protective because, is that a word?
Yes. Yeah, I think you actually hit that one on the nail on the head. Well done.
And yeah, like everyone did write me off. Everyone thought what my future was going to be like, and it was the opposite of what it is now. And I think, yeah, like I said, like I kept telling myself, I don't know where I had this drive or this this mindset from, but I was like, do not want to be what everyone thinks I'm going to be like. And I think that's what stuck with me my entire life, and it makes me mad. But that's what makes me not give up, is because I'm like, I think about how I felt when I was younger, and I think about those people that used to treat me like that, and I'm like, I'm going to prove you wrong. And then now I have these people that did treat me like that, DMing me on Instagram or commenting on something, being like, oh, you're doing so well. I'm like, yeah, I fucking know. Because I've made sure I was going to do well. I made it my absolute goal to not turn out how everyone expected me to be, because I felt I didn't deserve that, you know?
Definitely didn't. Yeah, amen to that.
I find it interesting hearing you speak about that, because in not the same way, but in a similar way, that's how I felt about the people that bullied me. Like, I always had this like thing that was like, because essentially I got bullied for being a keynote for, to be honest with you, I look back and I think, oh God, yeah, but I was just in my own bubble. I just did not conform to this normalness of school or whatever it was. I remember coming in on day one of year 7 and I was like, this is brilliant. My brain actually feels like it's being activated in school. This is amazing, because I didn't really enjoy primary school because it was kind of boring. And then as a result of that, I just became so keen to learn. And this is where I think my curiosity side of things started to kick in. But but then instantly I got bullied for that. I got bullied for the way I looked. I lost weight. I got bullied for the way I looked then. And I just constantly, so for me, a big motivation has been like, well, just keep being yourself. Because, oh, you put your hand up.
I'm just put my hand up because I don't want to forget what I want to say after you say it. It's relevant to what you're saying.
We'll do it.
Okay.
Do you want to keep your hand up?
No, sorry.
Do you want to
I
speak
feel
about
bad
it
that I've now ruined what you were saying. I didn't want that to
you
ruin
did
your
just
flow.
interrupt me, but by accident.
Sorry.
Not even by accident, but without
we'll
words.
come back to that, the interrupting and the...
Yes, we will. Right, let me just finish this last bit
I
before
wanted
I
you to
forget,
finish, by the
because
way.
I actually might forget
I
now.
didn't want you to not stop.
Basically, a big incentive for me is to just keep being myself, because there's been plenty of times when I was a child where I could have stopped being myself because people were literally bringing me down for it daily. And I am so grateful that I grew up when I did, because if I grew up now and there was internet as well, like, that would have been a different ballgame. But anyway, I'm really grateful for that, because now if someone tries to bring me down or says anything to me or makes any comment, it doesn't even touch the sides, because I'm like, well, the reason that I am the way I am is because I was the way I was when I was a kid. So I'm not going to change how I am now, because that'll be who I am in 10 more years. You may now speak.
Okay, it's about you though, if that's any help.
No.
No.
I might cry.
I want to give. No, I know you're saying that's what you got bullied for, but fast forward to now. Like, if you think about our friendship over the last year, one thing that I've learned from you is how much I value that you want to learn, like your curiosity and you want to learn. Like, I like that about you, and anything I've taken from this friendship, not that I haven't, I've taken loads. No, sorry. I've taken loads, but one thing I've taken from it is I also have now feel I've changed to also want to be like that.
Interesting.
Like, I purchased books.
Yeah, she's got books now.
Self-development books.
Isn't that amazing?
Yeah.
Just hold the door open, do they?
Excuse me.
No, she actually been reading them.
Well, the first one was Harry Potter, because I don't like Harry Potter. But anyway, the second, yeah, like I've like taken from you about the value of self-development and like wanting to learn, and like the openness to like being brainy is cool.
Yeah, and it's not even brainy. It's like
No. Do you know,
but
like using your brain?
It's
okay,
curious,
using your
that's
brain
it.
is cool.
Yeah, like wanting to expand your knowledge on things. For me, it like
See, I just didn't say it very well.
and I think for me, it's what gives me like a sense of purpose, and like it makes me excited for the future, because there's always new things to learn. Do not speak.
Okay. I'm still speaking. Grabbing a hand because I really want to speak.
But I think
I really want to speak. Sorry,
go on.
carry on.
No, go on.
You
I
go.
can't remember what I was going to say now.
You were saying, I can't even remember what you said.
Right,
didn't put
hurry
your
up.
hand up, that's
Simon's
fine.
turn to speak soon. Go on.
I can't remember.
Oh, bloody hell. Right. Anyway.
Oh, no, I got it. I remember.
If this happens once more.
Again and again and again. Well, half the time, I don't know the answers, so I ask you, and you give me this scientific answer. I'm like, oh, okay, cool. Like, you all seem to have the answers to things.
It's yeah. I guess it's because I always was so curious as to things growing up. Like,
Yeah, but that's cool.
yes, but what I'm saying is, then it wasn't, and
But now
that's the
it
thing.
is.
I used to know fact sheets of like the fish that were in my fish tank. Like I knew the species, I knew what fish they were compatible with, I knew their lifespan. I had it written out all in a book. So when I went to the fish shop with my dad and I said I want to get new fish, or I want to buy a turtle, or I want to do this, I knew exactly what I could get that would be compatible with that. And it's like the quote, knowledge is power. And apparently that's in a film and it's not used in a good way.
Apparently.
Or Game of Thrones or something. I don't know. But I have that on the top of my bed. And it's like, it literally is. Because if I know things, it gives you like, not leverage, but like just this like weird understanding. It's like sixth sense. That's the way I'm going to speak about it.
The moral of this interaction that's gone on for a long time is just us reassuring you that, like, what you got bullied for, I like about you. So.
Oh, no, I'm going to cry. I never cry.
She never cries.
Double whammy.
Thank
yeah.
you. Hey, it's nothing to do
Anyway,
with you.
Simon, welcome back. Welcome back to the podcast, Simon.
Bringing that full circle back around, curiosity. It's a word that we've spoken about a lot. What does it mean to you? What does curiosity mean to you, and why is it so important?
It's the only way I've got better, by being curious and asking why. You know, the old Japanese way of, I believe Toyota, I think, they ask why 5 times and they will always get to the root cause instead of asking why once, and people get defensive or feel like they're being judged, maybe because they don't know the answers, and there's a societal thing that we have to know the answers. To your point around curiosity's cool, totally agree. I want us to get back to that concept, and it is a cool thing. I go back to Reg, I look at him, he's 5, he's curious about everything, literally everything, and you're like, I hope we never grow out of that.
Yeah.
How can I enhance that and empower him? And I do apologise, I just interrupted your finger.
No,
up in
I'm
the air.
sorry. I'm sorry, but we both went.
But what
I was in my flowingest.
what will change that curiosity is the environment of everybody else telling him or making him feel that that's not cool. That's the only reason why that'll change. Like, you've got to implement that as a parent, but if he goes to school and kids around him are like, that's weird, he's going to feel like that's weird. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely.
So, like, how do we... She's going to have a go with your bang in the thing. How do we not allow that to happen? Do you know what I mean?
That's what I'm trying to do, I think, ultimately, is we can't change everything and everyone, but you can create environments in the places people are going to positively challenge and just explain that to me again, mate. Just talk me through that. You know, try to do it in a kind way, but also in a, not happy with that. There's something not right. Just talk me through it. And what I found, it's not easy. I don't do it every time. I want to get to a place where I do it more often. I do it more often now. But 9 times out of 10, people don't know why they say stuff. There is no, it's a knee-jerk reaction. It's a self-preservation thing. And people say now, oh, Speakeasy Club, I guess you want people to stop taking the piss out of each other, do you? I'm like, actually, no. Yeah. If anything, I want more of it. But what I really want to try and help people understand is, why are they taking the piss? That self-awareness needs to be something that just becomes second nature to all of us. You know, the way we've talked in the last half hour or so, there's plenty of self-awareness there, and that's ultimately how we all grow, get better, help ourselves out. But if you're taking the piss out of someone with the intent of making them feel rubbish, or if you're scared about a situation, so your defense mechanism is to make someone else feel like you're feeling, we need to have a look at that. It's
definitely the insecurity, isn't it? Because why would you, like... Why would that be an issue what someone else is doing? Like, why is that the way you view it? Why would you not be viewing it in the flip side of thing and be like, oh, that's actually quite cool? I think it is come back to the actual individual feeling insecure, and you're trying to put that on somebody else's action.
Absolutely. Hurt people, don't they? You know, in every experience we've talked about, there will be that. And I think empathy is so important, and it is a skill that I think we could all... it should be basics, I think, just to understand there is always something going on with the person in front of you. It doesn't make their behaviours right, and it doesn't excuse perhaps what they've done, but there will be a reason behind that. And I think the more we can create these environments of, it's all right to be, you do it on a training pitch. You know, you'll do it on a training pitch, you'll ask a coaching team, how do we do this? Right, this particular move's not quite working. And then you're empowered to do it on your own on the match pitch. And you have to. To me, there's no different, whether it's a boardroom, training pitch, the clubhouse, whatever. Just look after someone. Don't be a dick. And just, it's all right if we don't know the answer. Let's work it out together.
It was interesting you mentioned about challenging someone, because something that I'm working on.
The delivery?
Yes, correct. Yes. Because I just have no fear around it. Like, I have no issue with challenging someone. I agree that my delivery needs work, because I don't understand how savage I can be sometimes. It's not in the bad intentions, just my brain needs to understand why we're doing something, or if I something I don't agree with or just need some more clarity on, I just don't have fear and like anymore. Not I don't know if I did have that fear before, but I've just got this no fear of using my voice and questioning something. However, I feel like there's a lot of people that do have that fear and are too scared, and it's like.
But also, I think it is like, for me, like I don't feel scared necessarily to say the what I think, but I think like I'm probably more scared about like hurting people's feelings. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Or like, and I think it probably does come down to, right, I'm in a position here where people like me. These people are, they actually, you know, they like me a bit here. Okay, if I say something to piss them off, is that going to turn them against me? I can't do that. And this is like how I've worked out probably what it is that me, and it's me being like, okay, so what I need to do is I need to say to them that I'm not happy with something, but I need to say it in a way that validates them so that they think that I'm happy with them, but I'm trying to get change. That's the best way I can put it.
Made me understand you a bit more.
There we are then.
But, and then we use our own example. Like, we create memos for the gram where we artsy-fartsy, like, creativeness that we
On
both
Canva.
are. And, like, Gwen will send me something and I'll just tell my honest answer. But I'm trying to learn
Which is usually, that's shit.
No, it's not. I've never said that.
I'm sure if I go back, or she'll go,
Yeah, I'd have said
like,
that.
that's bad.
I've
Okay,
said
cool.
that, but I've never, ever, ever said it's shit. Come on, I am savage. But like, we've had to work to find a medium to being like, I need to be more self-aware that my savage honesty will hurt Gwen's feelings, but my brain is like, it goes against my nature to not be honest if I didn't like the memo, but then the flip of that being like,
I literally think
Gwen,
like
it's
Simon's
okay,
a therapist.
it's okay, Gwen, that Ffion doesn't really like it, but we'll work together to make it better.
When
You know?
when you get it, when she sends it through and you reply, are you replying because it doesn't resonate with you or for another reason?
What do you mean?
So if she sends a memo through and goes, right, this is what we need to put out there,
Yeah.
and you don't like it,
It's more so the design, not the
design.
actual
Right, okay.
quote. I like the quote.
Yeah, love the quote. Don't like the design.
She goes, what do you think of this? And I do reply saying, because, yeah, that's where I've got to at the moment.
What I found really interesting is that probably like working as a pair on this podcast has made me value the power of different thinking brains, because like I'm currently reading Rebel Ideas, and this has like cemented that thought, because you can achieve so much more when you have people that look at a problem differently and will find a solution but in different ways, because it might not work the first way and then you've always got the other way, or there might be some things that I'm really good at and some things that Fion's really good at, and if we can kind of speak to each other, that broadens our own skill sets and thought processes, but also like if there's something that Fion's going to be better at, then Ffion can take lead on that and roll with that. And I think one thing that we have had to learn is how to then communicate and work together on that, because while being different is really positive, it can also create challenges, because you want to do things one way and she wants to do things another way, you know?
Yeah, and in a scenario like the memos, we react complete opposite ends of the spectrum. Like, I'm very, very honest, Gwen's very, very
I just have
sensitive?
rejection-sensitive issues.
sensitive.
but you just explained and I articulated where that's come from.
Yeah.
So it's not about you at all. It's that trauma that you've had previously is still impacting really. And
But I need to be, what I've learned is I need to be aware of that. Like one thing I've learned over the last year especially is like being honest and just saying it how it is in a way all of the time sometimes isn't the right thing. As much as honesty is best policy and all this, I'm learning that delivery in certain scenarios and to who I'm delivering it to needs altering sometimes.
yeah, that makes sense.
Yes.
That makes total sense. Right.
Anyway, moving
This
on.
has been literally like therapy for us two.
Simon's back on the podcast.
Right.
Welcome back.
Touching a little bit on Speakeasy, I think it's clear, having heard your story, your reasoning why you wanted to do something like that, but where exactly did it start? Like the specific, how did you think, this is what it is, this is what it's going to be called, and this is what my goal is as a company? How, you know what I'm trying to say?
So, like all good businesses, they start at the back of a car showroom in Penarth.
Do you know what
Nice.
Luced's always say? Like all good rugby stories, they
Yeah,
started at a bar.
And a bar.
I think someone said that before, haven't they? Yeah. We two really good pals. Every Friday during the lockdown, 4:30 till 6:30, we'd meet in the back of the showroom, socially distanced, of course, and we'd share a few glasses of wine. And we called it Speakeasy Club because you're not supposed to talk about it, prohibition, all that sort of stuff. But it wasn't just drinking for drinking's sake. It was to catch up and just check in on how we're doing, but also there had to be a story behind the wine. So whether it's something from holiday or a memory or something from the vineyard or whatever it is, to be a story behind it, just start the conversation really. And naturally, rightly or wrongly, in alcohol, I've had my challenges and dependency, so I'm very, very conscious of that. But rightly or wrongly, blokes after a glass or a pint, we'll talk a bit more. So there is a big, big balance there. And we would help each other out. And I kind of found myself thinking, where is this space? This is a safe space. We're listening to each other. We're kind of helping each other out here. Where is this place normally? And fast forward a bit then to 3 months off work, and I've always loved sport, bringing people together, and was just like throwing around about a million different ideas of what I wanted to do and start my own company. And the name Speakeasy Club just kept coming back and back and back, and that was the kind of driver. Speaking easy then, just seemed to make sense. You'd pay a London agency millions for that. We came up with it on a WhatsApp group. So that was it. And I thought, right, sport is talking. So just started, set an Instagram page up and just registered the company. Didn't really know what it was going to be. Didn't have a clue. Next 18 months, I kind of just ran events. The idea was to run them in community clubs to help get money behind the bar, keep them going, and to normalise the tricky conversations. So talk about the tales from tour, the funny stuff that everyone wants to hear about, but also injuries, no contracts, retirement in many cases, loss of identity. So actually helping people understand, the people first, yeah, you happen to be blooming brilliant at your sport, but we're people first, their parents, their sons, daughters, whatever. And then they kind of just evolved really, and the idea of what difference am I making? It's nice for those events, but then over the last 6 months, it's kind of just gone turbo in the sense of, right, I don't want anyone to feel the way I felt. How could I do that? Right, let's get resources available to everybody in every community sports venue. Right, how are we going to do that? QR code. Right, dead easy. Everyone's used to it now. Importantly, you can scan it, take it away and look at it in your own time. Because that's shame or people don't want to be curious. That's the end goal, is absolutely get to a point where it's cool to be looking at that. What can we do that's different? Well, let's get a big pink bench.
I love that.
They're,
That's cool.
yeah, I love them. They are ridiculous and brilliant in equal measure.
I love that it's pink.
The idea was, when people say, it's somewhere to go and have a chat, is it? And I'm like, well, yeah, if you want it to be. There's also the QR codes on the bench, so you can do it while you're having a chat or a drink or whatever. But it also stands out. It's different.
Yeah.
So it's okay to be different. And honestly, the first one was down the Old Penarthians, which is my club. The amount of people, there are 7 benches out there. The amount of people that go for that one, that just find themselves drawn to sitting on there. And I've seen the youth boys out there on a Saturday. I've seen a couple of them scan the QR code, put their phone in their pocket. Like, I'm happy with that at the minute.
Yeah.
That's absolutely fine.
Because that's the step. That's the first step.
First step. And one of the dads, the week or two after I saw that, one of the dads came in and said, "Oh, Simon, that's your thing out there, isn't it?" I said, "Oh, yeah." He said, "Oh, my lads told me what was there." And there was just, because it's at a rugby club, there were rugby-related resources and videos and loads of loose head stuff and RPA and all that. And he was like, "Yeah, it looks really cool, actually." He doesn't need anything, but he knows where he can go.
That's cool.
Happy days.
That is-
Right, that's
yeah.
where we
Yeah.
are. So the idea is scale it up. Yes, we'll still do events at clubs and we'll create the conversations. We have chats like this on the bench, and the interaction between you two then was brilliant. It was so lovely because you were sharing something about Gwen that you hadn't told her before, and we did an event recently at Cardiff Met, and Di Flanagan and Ashton Hewitt were there, and Di's head coach, Ash is a player, and Di went, "I don't know about you, Ash.
Yeah.
Like we don't spend time to understand the story or how you got to where you are and who you are and why you are. I know him for 20 years. Oh yeah, I know all about him." We don't.
Don't understand the person behind the player.
Got no idea.
And I think that's so powerful because, like, I speak about all the time. You like, person comes first, and like everybody's different. And you get a rugby team, for example. Everyone's personality is different. Everyone's driven in a different way. Everyone's story is different. You've got to understand that. You've got to find how people tick and how people drive and how people are triggered. Like, I think that would transform sport if you had that relationship.
That's my plan.
Nice.
That's what we want to do, I think, because there's ages and at the end of the day, let's take this rugby. It's fun. We're going to be in these venues forever. They are so integral to community on and off the pitch. And we all have problems. The amount of people that come up, once you start telling a story, I'm sure you've had this, or you may well have had this as well. People come up and go, "Oh, you've got 5 minutes?" "Yeah, of course I have, mate, yeah." And they don't know what they want to say yet, but you know that there's stuff going on. And just to be able to validate and go, "I haven't got all the answers. I'm not going to pretend like I do. But it's all right feeling how you're feeling. And we'll look after you. We'll do it together."
I think on the back of my episode, that's what I felt like. I don't know, I can't explain it, but like I had so many different messages from people like choosing to be so vulnerable to me and being like, "I've just listened to this and this resonates with me for X, Y, and Z," and like pouring out their own experience to me. And I just thought that was just, I don't know, I just really respected that, even though I've just been vulnerable. But I'm like, me being vulnerable, that's literally one of the reasons why I've done it, is to show people exactly like the people that are messaging me now that is okay. And like, I don't know, it can be quite heavy to feel like that's the influence that you can have by like sharing something tricky, but that's giving somebody else confidence. Like, I just think that that's really, really powerful.
And you won't like this. I'll say something nice
God.
about you in a minute.
I'm waiting.
Which you won't like. But yeah, it is. We do these things selfishly. We need to do it. We need to get these things off our chest and we need to process them ourselves. And 9 times out of 10 is talking out loud. But we also don't understand or appreciate the value it can have to other people. Gives them permission to validate and feel how they feel. There'll be nuances, there'll be slight differences, but suddenly there's a club. You feel part of something, and that's all people want, is they want to feel part of something. And if it's a group of like-minded people who've had similar experiences, and that's what you've done. You've supported, you've empowered, and you've changed a lot of people's lives by that. You may not have seen it, you may not have been told, but I guarantee the amount of silent supporters that are out there on the basis of what you've talked about over the last couple of years, it'd be unbelievable.
Thank you.
As that.
I've got to be better at taking compliments, so I'm going to say thank you very much for that.
I'm awful.
I-
It's yeah.
And I think like I've spoken about it a lot, is that like one quote I live by is "be who you need to when you were younger," and like I never had that support, or like I never knew where to go. Like I never knew, I'm struggling with all these things. Where do I go? Where's the right place for me? Like, I mentioned that I had to have adult anger management because there wasn't anything available to me as a young angry kid. And like now I'm like, okay, well, if I can play a small percentage in someone's struggling story and like to show that there's hope and like to try and give some answers to a mindset or whatever, like fine. But like I think you've been through trauma, you've been through something, then you know how it feels. You, like you said, you don't want anybody else to feel like that. I do have one question for you, which may be a tough question, but something you mentioned earlier. Purely from my experience as a kid, why I want to ask this to you. I know you mentioned that you had obviously like your alcohol dependency issues that you'd been through, and obviously now you have your own child. Has having him like changed your kind of like feeling towards alcohol as well, like is like obviously being a child that had a parent that had an alcohol dependency, like now that you've had him, has that created a fear on alcohol for you because you don't want to be dependent on it again being a parent now? Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. Yeah.
Sorry if I haven't worded that right, but
No,
I'm sure
no.
I'm gauging what I mean.
I get it totally. I think the short answer is yes. I think it's about what am I trying to say?
Have I thrown you off? I'm really sorry.
No, not at all. Not at all. And it's a really good question and a really important one because I don't think about it enough. I think if I've got him all weekend on my own, for example, I'm not going to be hungover. I'm not drinking because I want to spend quality time. I don't remember the first 2.5 years of his life.
Wow.
Because I was in such a low place. I can probably pick out 3 things that my head remembers. I don't feel any of it. Day of his birth, I didn't feel anything. My head was like, this is cool. So I'm not prepared to... I've gone the other way now. I want to spend as much time as possible with him and enhance and help him learn. And I don't want him to see the negative impact of alcohol. I think it's important to understand why, understand what it's about. You know, for me, I was drinking to numb the feelings. I didn't know at the time. Now I know why. It's because I enjoy it. I don't do it anywhere near as much. You don't need it. So I think it's important just to kind of help. I'll talk to him about it. I think he's 5, but to acknowledge that this does have an impact on people, and kids see an awful lot more than we think they do.
Yeah.
And they piece a lot together. So I'm very, very conscious of that.
Thank you.
Is there anything else you want to do before we do the question?
Would you like me to?
I wanted to say something to you,
All right
actually.
then, go on.
Yeah, please give her brace.
Okay, it's typical. She's on her phone now.
No, I was reading our questions. Oh,
Okay,
don't
I
say that
actually think
to
we've
me.
covered a lot of that off.
Oh, that's a good question.
I can't see it. Oh yeah, that was always
That is a
on my
very
thing.
good question.
Wait, no.
And
Yeah.
okay, and then that question, and then I think we finish on this, and then ask the question. So we got to speed this up.
Okay, cool.
You mentioned mindset. Mindset's really important to you. I know that. I don't feel I can be negative when I talk to you, which is great.
Wow.
It's self-talk, negative, lack of self-worth, all that sort of stuff, which I don't dismiss because it's hard. But if I talk to you and you're like, how are you getting on? I feel like I have to acknowledge if there's a bit of a sticky thing going on. I think I did the other week or something. The other week I mentioned I just listened to the pod that you did with Drew Povey. Talked about post-traumatic growth.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah, which I thought was like, that is world class. And I was just, again, brilliant, like we all are at times. Oh, this fucking shit. Oh, God, what's going on? I can't do it. You can't see the wood for the trees. But actually, when I speak to you, I feel like, okay, you could acknowledge it, but what's the plan? And I think that helps me a lot in replying, going, oh, God, I haven't actually got a plan yet. Get a plan, then reply, and then I got a plan.
Interesting. Wow, thank you.
So that's helped me an awful lot. That's how I
really
feel
interesting.
anyway.
On the back of that,
Go on. Yeah.
just to add to what he's saying, I feel like if I'm ever in a negative space, or I'm ranting about something or something shit, you never come back with shit. Like, you don't add on to the you're not like, oh yeah, I know, so fucking you always come back with a solution or some sort of like positive spin on it. So it's not like doubled up with something. Like, if I'm just dumping on you, you're not like dumping back or adding to that. You always come back with something like, it's okay, maybe because of this and and sometimes I'm like, Gwen being wise, but also like, but I think that
I
is
don't
quite,
need you to be wise
yes.
right now. Come and sit in the mud with me for a minute.
Yeah, but I do think that's like a mature skill, you know?
Yeah,
You
it's
just
incredible.
get lost in that negativity, you get lost in that spiral, and it just becomes a pile of shit, basically.
Yeah.
But like, I do think that's a very mature skill to have.
You don't enable the shit, you empower people. That's what you do.
Wow.
Bosh.
Could I get that tattooed? No. Yeah, I think, firstly, thanks, guys.
No worries.
Like, it's nice to hear because I think that's something that I actively try to do. Like, I hate gossip. I hate, because it spiral, and I really understand the power of negativity, but equally the power of one positive thing in a negative situation can actually just flip everything on its head. And I've been in my own head so many times, like with injuries, like not even just with injuries, with loads of little things like the overthinking, like worrying if this goes wrong, then this will go wrong. And I can see the way it spirals. So now I'm like, it's like we spoke about it on the very first episode about like the glasses, the lens that you can just choose to look at situations through. And now I think I've almost trained myself to see every single situation through that. And I think I've worked a lot on the skill of empathy to try and, when I'm listening to people, I try and put myself in their shoes. But equally, I'm like, if I was in their shoes, this is what I'd need to hear, rather than just be like, validate the way they feel. It's almost like I know that that's not going to help, because if I was like going off on one about something, then I wouldn't want someone to sit there and be like, oh, you're right, it's actually terrible and the world's going to end. Like, I wouldn't want that. I would want someone to be like, but have you thought about it this way? And I think that only comes from having evidence that that is the case. Like, so many positive things have come from the really shit things that have happened. Like, so many positive things probably completely outweighs the negativity, that I just now think like, well, I've got evidence that that's the case, so why not believe it? And then if something shit happens on the back of something shit, it's like, well, the only way is up, baby, you know? So you just got to kind of look at it that way. Nice, babe.
Empathy
Nice, babe.
is about putting yourself in someone else's shoes, but wearing your own socks.
Wow. I
Sorry,
like
can you
that
say
one.
that again? I was reading
That isn't mine. I have heard that somewhere else. I can't. Empathy is about putting yourself in someone else's shoes, but wearing your own socks.
Oh my God, that's awesome.
That's really good.
That's
I
the
heard
next
that
memo.
somewhere.
Yeah,
That
there
is
we are. You've
weekend
just created a memo. I
wisdom.
tell you what,
I'm gonna
you can
tag
do
you
the
in it.
design.
I'll
You do
tag
the
you
design.
in it.
Save me the hassle.
Okay,
Oh, you're
gonna
gonna
have
ask
to-
it.
we're gonna have
You're
to-
gonna ask the question. Oh,
you're
my.
gonna have to. Can you get the question?
No, we've got the question. The question on there. That I
Yeah,
wanted
but
to
we haven't
ask.
got time.
We got time. Can you answer shortly and concisely?
Right? Can yeah? We can.
Yeah, sorry.
Right.
The producer's going to go nuts.
You go.
She is. We are. She is. Sorry in advance. Why do you think it is so difficult for men specifically to open up and talk about these feelings?
We're scared. We haven't been given the tools over the years to do it, to know what's on the other side of not knowing. We're expected decades, generations to have all the answers, to be the ones in control and to solve everything. I still see it now with my father's generation, and all roads lead to them, and that's not, it shouldn't ever be the case. It certainly should be the case now. It should be the case moving forward. But similarly, we're not taught. We're not curious enough about how we understand ourselves and the good, the bad, and the ugly. And I think that going back to what we've talked about before, give everyone a toolbox, and by sticking a QR code in a rugby club, gives people a few tools, empower them to be curious about what they look and feel like, and then to have the empathy to go, okay, so maybe they're a little bit different, but they'll be going through similar stuff. And actually that then becomes a superpower rather than anything else. So I think that's it, yeah.
Nice.
That's a very good answer.
Is
I'm
a
going
very
to
good
get the
answer.
book.
You get the book. I'm going to ask another question. I just want to know what, considering.
Wait, pause,
okay.
because
no
I
worries.
just really got to like limbo out of
All
here
right.
and I didn't
Ow.
want to get into it. Sorry.
Do you want me to wait till you're back before asking this question? No, in case you make a lot of noise and you return.
Oh, big time stiff. Sorry, it's really quite hard to get in and out.
Yeah.
Okay.
Skills.
What, before we ask you our closing tradition, what excites you about the future?
Today, everything. I think for so long, nothing. And I think you asked the TMO question, any reason why you shouldn't be excited? No. Well, be excited then. I think that's where I wanted to get to. I didn't realise that's where I wanted to get to until you asked the question, because no one's ever asked me that question. I think, I feel like we've got a chance of making a difference with Speakeasy. I feel like we can have a bit of fun with it as well. That gets forgotten at times. And I'm looking forward to kind of seeing how Reg develops and grows, and the bits he takes on, the bits he teaches me. And I just think there's a lot to be excited about, really, and the mindset piece around allowing yourself to be excited is something that's still very new to me, but I'm looking forward to it.
Nice.
It's a very good answer. I like that you said everything. I was like, yeah, that's good. Very positive. Okay,
As
your
he knows.
question. Pardon?
He's a committed listener, so he's
Yeah,
going to know
I
what's
know.
coming.
Actually, I was going to ask the first question when you sat down. I was going to go, so do you think you're one of Say It How It Is' number one fans? I don't know. So what's your answer?
I hope so.
We'll have to look at the Spotify stats.
Yeah.
Your question is, what is your greatest defining moment?
Because, by the way, we have a closing tradition on the podcast where the previous guest leaves the next guest question.
But he knows this because he's one of our biggest fans.
Yes, he does.
Yeah. Crikey, that's a hell of a question,
Isn't it?
isn't it? Greatest defining moment.
I feel like I have your answer. And
I
I've
think
already
I
just
do
met
too.
you.
Oh,
Oh
do
my
you?
God, imagine if we have the same one.
Yeah.
So you two say it
No,
together
no,
after
and
three.
your answer first.
Okay, but
No,
I'll whisper in your ear if you whisper in mine.
you do realise that he can hear
Oh,
us
yeah.
speak.
Oh, yes. Okay, well,
Anyway,
After three, you two say it.
no, you say
okay,
you
after
say
three.
it. No, you say it. I want you to say
I
yours
don't- I
first.
don't
He
know
doesn't know
yet.
the answer, but we have his
But
answer
you
for
say
him.
what you think first.
Okay,
then.
fine. I think, even though I've only known you for 2 hours in person, I feel like your defining moment was stepping away from the cliff.
That was
And
my
I
answer
think
too.
it sounds like, even though I've only heard your story from the last hour, I feel like that was your defining moment because you made a decision to change your life for the better. And I think, like, how it could have been easy for you to make a different decision, like that you were one step away from like losing all that fear that you felt, but you chose not to make that decision. And like, look how much your life has changed because of that.
Have you ever made all guests, everybody in the room, cry?
No,
So,
usually people
trying.
make me cry, but
Yeah, I think you're probably right, actually.
and I've only met you
That's
for,
what sprung to
for
mind straight away.
an
Yeah.
hour or two, and the fact that Gwen knows you a lot more and knows you quite well, and the fact that we've both had the same answer.
Yeah. And the way you articulated it, I think,
That
as
was
well.
probably
Thank
one
you,
of the
'cause
best articulations you've ever done.
I'm not articulate, everyone. I'm really not. But thank you very much because I really meant it.
Amazing. Oh, yeah, okay. Thank you. Yeah, yeah, I think you're right.
So thanks for your answer.
Yeah. Yeah.
Sorry, I feel like we've just
Blow
thrown
you
you there.
away.
No.
Okay,
yeah.
well, to end, while you're just thinking about that, is there anything you want to tell people, send people? Obviously, you've got your own podcast. Talk to them about that before we end.
Oh, wait. Where do people find the benches? Where are they?
Oh, yeah. So we've got them in 6 clubs at the moment across South Wales. Also in T Haven, we've got a bench as well. So it's not just exclusively sports clubs. So that's what I'm trying to market it as. They need to go in places people go to, essentially. It's on the website, speakeasyclub.co.uk, all good social media platforms, some rubbish ones. At Speakeasy
I heard
Club
that the
1.
other day. Someone said that.
That's not mine either. I just find it really funny. And if people want to get in support, be really, really grateful. Get in touch, and different ways of doing it. We could talk through that, but ultimately, we've got venues that want a bench. If people want to donate one, or if you've got a venue that you want to donate a bench to, we'll do that.
Wow, so that's possible, is it?
Yeah, absolutely. And you can either do. It's not necessarily just a pink picnic bench. It can be any version that fits into your venue. We've got a link with a tennis club coming up, and we're going to put one on the court,
Wow.
which would be cool.
That is cool.
And Woody's Lodge in Barry, which is for veterans. We've actually got a flat pack. So we're going to take it, film some content while the veterans we're chatting, having a conversation, and they're building the bench at the same time. So
That's cool.
again, the TMO question, is there any reason we can't do it different? No, let's do it then.
Oh, I love that mindset. So if people wanted to is that through the website? Do they find, if they wanted to donate or wanted a bench, that they find that information
Yeah,
through the website? Is it?
our email address and contact details are all on the website, or through social media. Send us a message, and we can get in touch, and hopefully we can make it happen.
And the website and social media will be linked below.
Wow, that's pretty cool if you ask me.
Yeah, it's really cool.
Fab. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you both. Thanks for your time. Really appreciate the opportunity.
I feel like that was an incredible conversation, and really appreciate your honesty and your vulnerability, and also like the compliments you gave us of your opinion of us. I think that was really, really cool, and I just really enjoyed that conversation, basically.
And thank you for listening to when me and Ffion decided to speak to each other for 10 minutes.
I respect the work you're doing. It's awesome, and I think, respect the fact you just want to make a difference. And I hope to see so many pink-coloured, it doesn't have to be pink, but pink-coloured benches. Away we go, everywhere. But
Agreed.
thank you.
Brilliant.
Thank you so much.
Both. Thanks for your time.
What do you need to say? And remember...
To keep saying it how it is, guys.